AITA for exposing my family after they forged my signature to help my brother? I'm Sarah, 28, and being Denise and Richard's daughter has always felt like a job nobody admits exists. I'm the one who gets called when a bill is late, when paperwork needs fixing, or when Jordan somehow misunderstands another responsibility. I keep spare phone chargers in my car, bring lemon bars to family cookouts even when I'm mad, and until recently, I still believe that being calm enough would make my mom finally see me as loyal instead of difficult. Jordan is my younger brother. He's 25, charming when he wants to be, and permanently in the middle of trying to get back on track. The track has changed names over the years, but the pattern hasn't. When he was 19, he forgot to cancel a gym membership and overdraft his checking account for 3 months. Mom called me because he was too embarrassed to call the bank. At 21, he missed 2 car payments because he thought autopay was set up. I covered 1 payment after Mom promised she would repay me by Friday. Friday came and went. When I asked about it the following week, she sighed and said, "Don't keep score with your own mother." At 23, he borrowed money from Aunt Ruth for a certification course and spent part of it on a weekend trip. Mom told Ruth the course had been postponed and quietly asked me to send Jordan enough to replace what he'd used. "Just cover it for now," she said in a voicemail. "And don't mention it to Ruth. She'll make this into a whole thing." I saved that voicemail not because I was planning some future family takedown, but because the family emergencies had started blending together. I could no longer remember which promise belonged to which payment. Mom hated when I used words like payment, balance, receipt, or repayment. "Family helps family," she would say. What she meant was that I helped and nobody discussed it afterward. Jordan could carry Grandma Elaine's groceries from her porch to the kitchen, and Mom would tell everyone he had such a heart for older people. I could spend 3 hours sorting out an insurance denial, pick up prescriptions, refill the weekly pill organizer, and drive Grandma to an appointment, and Mom would tell me I needed to smile more because Grandma could sense stress. Dad's role was to be nearby without getting involved. He'd wash dishes during arguments or check the grill when voices got louder. He found reasons to go outside and inspect things that hadn't needed inspection 5 minutes earlier. He called that staying out of it. I called it leaving me alone in the room. Grandma Elaine's health declined slowly at first, then all at once. She started forgetting whether she had taken her medication. She stopped driving. Her knees made stairs difficult, and she became anxious in medical offices unless someone sat beside her and wrote things down. Mom talked a lot about how much the family was doing for Grandma. In practice, Aunt Ruth handled most of the meals, I handled appointments and paperwork, and Mom handled the announcements. She would send messages like, "We all need to pull together for Mom," usually after Ruth or I had already pulled something together. Jordan was added as an authorized helper on a small care account because he was supposed to pay a few recurring expenses and pick up cash for Grandma's home aid. The account wasn't a fortune. Grandma had set aside enough to cover medication, groceries, transportation, and occasional home assistance. Mom described it as Grandma's care cushion. I didn't have direct access to that account. My part was different. Grandma had asked me to keep copies of invoices, appointment notes, and receipts because she trusted me to notice when the numbers didn't make sense. She once squeezed my hand at her kitchen table and said, "Your mother hears what she wants to hear. Your brother hears the part where someone else will fix it. You hear the whole sentence." I laughed because it sounded exactly like her. She didn't laugh. "Keep the papers," she said. So I did. I had a caregiving calendar with pharmacy pickups, rides, appointment reminders, and notes about which expenses had been paid. I saved email confirmations. I kept pictures of receipts when the ink started fading. My doorbell camera had months of clips showing me arriving home late with grocery bags or medication boxes still in my hands. Grandma also wrote me a note in her shaky handwriting a few months before she died. "Sarah, thank you for doing the boring things nobody claps for." I kept it tucked inside the calendar. After Grandma passed, the family moved through the first few weeks in a fog of casseroles, condolence cards, and half-finished conversations. Ruth brought chicken and rice to my parents' house. My cousin Leah organized the flowers. Jordan talked about how strange it felt that Grandma's chair was empty. Mom told people Jordan had been her rock. I didn't correct her. That was my mistake. Not because Jordan had done nothing, but because I had spent years believing that correcting the record would create more pain than swallowing the lie. I protected Jordan from embarrassment. I protected Mom from criticism. I protected Dad from having to choose a side. Then they used my silence as evidence against me. About 6 weeks after Grandma's funeral, Mom asked me to come over on a Thursday evening. Dad was rinsing dishes when I arrived, even though dinner had apparently ended an hour earlier. Jordan sat at the kitchen table, tapping his fingers beside a stack of papers. Mom pushed 2 pages toward me. "It's just housekeeping," she said. The first page was titled, Family Reimbursement Acknowledgement. It stated that all caregiving expenses paid from Grandma's account had been reviewed and accepted by the family. It also said no family member disputed Jordan's use of the funds. The second page authorized Jordan to coordinate the sale, distribution, or storage of Grandma's remaining personal property, and to manage any small leftover funds connected to her care. I read both pages twice. "Where's the accounting?" I asked. Mom's smile tightened. "What accounting?" "The list of deposits, withdrawals, bills, and reimbursements." "Sarah, this isn't a corporation." "No, it's Grandma's money." Jordan leaned back in his chair. "Why are you saying it like that?" "Like what?" "Like I did something." I asked for a breakdown. Mom folded her arms. "Your brother is trying to step up. You always say you want him to be responsible, but the second he does anything, you interrogate him. If everything is clean, a written breakdown shouldn't scare anyone." Dad turned off the faucet, dried his hands, and stared at the towel. Mom said, "This is exactly why people think you've changed." I looked at her. "Which people?" She didn't answer. I slid the papers back across the table. "I'm not signing anything until I see the records." Jordan let out a humorless laugh. "You're making this a legal thing for the drama. It's already a financial document. It's family paperwork. Then the family can explain it." Mom followed me into the hallway. "Your grandmother wanted peace," she said. "Grandma wanted receipts." Her face changed for half a second. It wasn't grief. It was alarm. Then she covered it with disappointment. "You always have to make yourself the smartest person in the room." "No. I just read before I sign." The first barbecue happened that Sunday. It was the kind of family gathering that looked harmless from the driveway. Lawn chairs were arranged in a loose circle. A cooler sat open on the patio. There were paper plates, ribs, corn, potato salad, Ruth's broccoli casserole, and a grocery store cake sweating inside its plastic lid. I brought lemon bars. I knew there was tension, but I assumed Mom would keep it private because she cared so much about appearances. I underestimated how useful an audience could be. For the first hour she acted normal. She hugged me, asked if I wanted iced tea, and told Ruth my lemon bars were always such a hit. Jordan barely looked at me. Dad stood by the grill, moving the same set of tongs from one side to the other. After everyone had eaten, Mom stood with a plastic cup in her hand. "I just want to say something about family," she began. The conversation around the patio faded. She smiled gently like she was about to offer a toast at a wedding. "We've had a difficult season. Losing Mom reminded me that some children remember where they came from. Some only remember what they think they're owed." My stomach dropped. Nobody looked directly at me at first, which was almost worse. Mom continued, "I've tried to keep private matters private, but I can't force anyone to care about unity. I can only ask that we pray for soft hearts." Jordan stared at the ground. Dad looked at his plate. Leah glanced at me with a confused frown. I set my fork down. "Are we talking about family needing help?" I asked. "Or Jordan needing another clean slate?" Mom's public smile stayed in place, but her eyes hardened. "There it is," she said. "Everything is an accusation with you." I asked what you wanted me to sign. Ruth looked from me to Mom. "Sign what?" Mom ignored her. "You're choosing money over blood," she said. Jordan finally spoke. "I'm trying, Sarah. You don't have to embarrass me every time I make progress." "I haven't told anyone what the papers say." "You just did," Mom snapped. "No. You raised a glass and turned everyone into my jury." A few people shifted in their chairs. Someone's child opened the cooler, and the lid fell shut with a hollow thump. Leah said, "Maybe this should be private." I agree, I said. Mom gave a sad little laugh. Walking away proves my point. I stood, carried my paper plate to the trash, and thanked Ruth for the casserole. My hands were steady, which surprised me. Mom followed me down the driveway. You can't keep punishing this family because you need control, she said in a low voice. I opened my car door. I asked for numbers. You're humiliating your brother. No, Mom. I'm refusing to sign a statement I can't verify. You always twist things. And you always add an audience. She stepped closer. If you leave now, everyone will know exactly who you are. I looked back toward the patio. Dad had started collecting empty plates. Jordan was sitting with his elbows on his knees while Leah spoke quietly to him. No, I said. They'll know who you told them I am. Walking away proves my point. It proves I'm done being cross-examined at dinner. I got in my car and left before dessert. By the time I got home, I had 3 messages. The first was from Leah. Your mom is devastated. I don't know the whole story, but refusing to help with grandma's things seems harsh. The second was from Ruth. Are you okay? You don't have to answer tonight. The third was from Mom. I hope humiliating your father was worth it. Not Jordan. Not Grandma. Dad. She knew exactly which guilt button she was pressing. I placed my phone face down on the kitchen counter and stood there listening to the refrigerator hum. My lemon bar pan was still in the back seat of my car because I had left too quickly to grab it. For about 10 minutes, I considered sending a long message explaining everything. Then I realized I didn't know everything. I only knew that Mom wanted my signature badly enough to shame me in public. For the first time, I stopped asking why they were doing this and started asking what they needed to hide. I made coffee, even though it was late, and pulled the plastic storage bin with Grandma's records from my closet. Inside were bank statements Grandma had received before she stopped managing her own mail, pharmacy receipts, homemade invoices, grocery receipts, appointment notes, and printed email chains. I opened my laptop and searched old messages for Jordan's name, Mom's name, care account, reimburse, temporary, and Grandma. The first discrepancy was small. Mom had told Ruth that Jordan personally paid $620 for a month of home aid visits. I had an email from the agency showing the money came directly from Grandma's care account. The second discrepancy was larger. Mom had asked me to cover a $1,140 pharmacy and equipment shortfall because, according to her, the account was temporarily locked during a bank verification review. My bank history showed I sent the money through Zelle. Her message said she would repay me as soon as the account reopened. She never did. I found 6 more transfers from me over 2 years. Some were through Zelle, some through Venmo. The notes said things like Grandma meds, aid until Friday, utility catch-up, and Jordan temporary. Together, they totaled a little over $7,000. That didn't include groceries, gas, parking, or smaller expenses I had never bothered tracking. I called Ruth the next morning. Do you remember Mom saying the care account was frozen? I asked. There was a pause. When? I gave her the date. No, Ruth said. I deposited money into it that week. How much? $2,000. Your mother said the aid needed extra hours. I wrote it down. Did she ever send you a statement? No. She said Jordan was organizing all that. Ruth's voice changed. Sarah, what is going on? I don't know yet. Is this about yesterday? Yes. She exhaled slowly. Your mother told us you refused to help settle Elaine's expenses. I refused to sign a statement saying the expenses had already been reviewed. Ruth was silent. Then she said, those are not the same thing. No. Called Leah after that. She answered with the cautious tone people use when they expect a fight. I'm not calling to argue, I said. Ask Mom what she wants me to sign. She said it's so Jordan can handle Grandma's remaining things. Ask her why the document says I accept all prior uses of the care account. Leah didn't answer immediately. I didn't know it said that. Neither did anyone at the barbecue. Why didn't you say it? Because Mom announced that I was selfish before I had proof of what she was hiding. Leah sighed. She made it sound like you were blocking Jordan from stepping up. I'm asking him to account for the money he already handled. That's not how she explained it. I know. After we hung up, I spent the rest of the weekend organizing records. I didn't build a dramatic presentation. I made a spreadsheet for myself with dates, amounts, explanations, and sources. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Cash withdrawals appeared near dates when Mom had asked me to cover legitimate expenses. Transfers from Grandma's account went to Jordan in round amounts. $900, $1,200, $750, $2,000. The descriptions were vague or blank. On some days, there were ATM withdrawals and a transfer to Jordan within hours of each other. I didn't have complete statements, but I had enough fragments from Grandma's records to estimate that thousands were missing. On Monday afternoon, Leah sent me a screenshot without any introduction. It was a text from Mom. If Sarah signs the new page, no one has to know what Jordan did. She just wants attention, so don't feed it. A second message followed. Mom meant to send that to Jordan. Then Leah wrote, "Please tell me there's another explanation." I stared at the screenshot until the words stopped feeling like words. There was validation in it, but not relief. I had spent so long hoping someone would finally see what Mom was doing that I had never imagined how ugly it would feel when they did. Called Leah. "What happened?" I asked. She was texting me about the barbecue. Then that came through. She deleted it almost immediately, but I had already taken the screenshot. "Did you respond?" I asked what Jordan did. And she said I misunderstood and then stopped replying. I closed my eyes. Leah's voice cracked slightly. "Sarah, I judged you. You believed your aunt. I should have asked you." "Yes." I didn't soften it for her, but I didn't attack her either. She said, "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to get the documents." The papers Mom had shown me were connected to the informal accounting being prepared for Grandma's remaining property and care expenses. I sent a short written request to the person helping assemble the estate records. I didn't accuse anyone of fraud. I asked for copies of every document containing my name, initials, signature, acknowledgement, or authorization. The response came 2 days later. There were 7 pages. I recognized the first few. Months earlier, while Grandma was alive, I had signed a care authorization allowing the pharmacy and one medical office to speak with me. My signature was on the last page. Another page was the reimbursement acknowledgement Mom had shown me. Then there was a copied page I had never seen. My signature appeared beneath language stating that I had reviewed disbursements from Grandma's care account and agreed Jordan's withdrawals were for authorized family expenses. I felt cold all the way down my arms. The signature was mine. The page was not. The spacing was different from the original authorization. The signature sat slightly too close to the paragraph above it. The date was typed in a different format from the other pages, and it listed a day when I had been out of town with Grandma for a specialist appointment. I had calendar notes, an emailed appointment confirmation, and a parking receipt from that day. I called the person who had sent the records. "That's my signature," I said. "But that is not a page I signed." There was a careful pause. "Are you certain?" "Yes." "Do you know how it was submitted?" "I would like that documented in writing." That was the first time my voice sounded unfamiliar to me. Not angry. Not frightened. Final. I contacted an attorney for a brief consultation. I didn't ask for a lawsuit or a dramatic threat. I asked how to protect my name and make sure no one used the page as proof of consent. The attorney helped me prepare a notarized letter stating that I did not authorize the use of my name, signature, or prior consent for any new family financial document, and that I disputed the acknowledgement attached to my signature. The letter requested a complete accounting before any remaining property or funds were distributed under Jordan's control. I sent it to the relevant parties by email and certified mail. I also sent Mom, Dad, and Jordan a short message. I will not sign any document without a full accounting. I dispute the page that uses my signature beneath language I did not review or approve. From this point forward, all communication about Grandma's funds or property must be in writing. Mom called 9 times. I didn't answer. Jordan sent, "Are you seriously getting lawyers involved in family stuff?" I replied, "I am protecting my signature." He wrote, "You're making me look bad." I stared at that sentence for a while. Then I typed, "No, Jordan, I've been keeping you from looking bad for years." He didn't respond. Dad left one voicemail. Sarah, this is getting bigger than it needs to be. Your mother is upset. Call me when you can talk calmly. I saved that one too. I was calm. That was the problem. They had always depended on me becoming emotional enough that the argument could replace the facts. Mom tried a different tactic with the relatives. She said grief had made me suspicious. She said I was threatening legal action over a few sentimental items. She said Jordan was only trying to help. Some relatives accepted that version because it was easier. Others went quiet. Leah stopped defending Mom. Ruth started asking direct questions about the account. That was when Mom scheduled another family dinner. She called it a chance to clear the air before this permanently damages everyone. I didn't plan to attend. Then Ruth called me. She's going to do it again, Ruth said. Do what? Tell the story with you absent. I leaned against my kitchen counter. I don't want another scene. Neither do I. But I stayed quiet too long. That caught me off guard. Ruth continued. I knew you were doing more for Elaine than Denise admitted. I didn't know about the money, but I knew the story about you not helping was false. I should have said something. Why didn't you? Because your mother turns every disagreement into a loyalty test. Yes. That's not an excuse. No, it wasn't. I agreed to go, but I made a decision before I arrived. I would not debate my personality. I would not defend whether I was loving, loyal, cold, jealous, controlling, or changed. I would discuss only verifiable facts. I printed the relevant bank statements and highlighted only the lines that mattered. I printed the Zelle and Venmo confirmations. I printed Mom's voicemail transcript. Just cover it for now and don't mention it to Ruth. I printed the caregiving calendar pages, Grandma's note, the screenshot Leah had sent me, and the questionable signature page beside the original authorization page. I didn't put them in a dramatic folder. I clipped each set separately and carried them in a plain reusable grocery bag, under a container of lemon bars. I almost laughed at myself in the parking area. Even on the night I planned to expose my family's lies, I had brought dessert. Inside, the table was already set. Ruth had made a casserole again. Leah was sitting near the end of the table with her phone face down beside her plate. Jordan looked exhausted, though I couldn't tell if it came from guilt or from being questioned for the first time in his life. Dad was in the kitchen, rinsing a serving spoon that was already clean. Mom hugged me at the door. I'm glad you came, she said warmly. Her hand stayed on my arm a second too long. Let's keep this respectful, she whispered. I plan to. Dinner lasted 14 minutes before she began. She waited until everyone had food. I want to say that grief can make people behave in ways they normally wouldn't, she said. I forgive Sarah for making painful accusations, but I will not apologize for trying to keep this family together. I put down my fork. Jordan rubbed his forehead. Mom continued. There is no missing inheritance. There is no scheme. There are only personal expenses, misunderstandings, and a sister who has decided money matters more than blood. I looked around the table. A few people avoided my eyes. Ruth did not. Mom said. Jordan has been trying to cooperate, but Sarah insists on treating him like a criminal. Jordan muttered. I'm trying. There it was. His favorite sentence. It required praise without requiring completion. I reached into the grocery bag and placed the first set of papers on the table. You all were invited to judge me with half the story, I said. So now you get the rest. Mom's face went still. Sarah, do not do this. You wanted an audience. This is private. It stopped being private when you raised a glass. I handed Ruth and Leah copies. I passed another set toward Dad. I sent the screenshot and the signature comparison privately to the relatives sitting at the table so nobody could claim later that they hadn't seen them. Mom's phone buzzed. Jordan's buzzed next. What is this? One of my uncles asked. Only the records that directly address what Mom said about me, I replied. Nothing else. I started with the money I had paid. These are the transfers Mom asked me to make for Grandma's medication, the home aid, utilities, and shortfalls in the care account. I was told each one was temporary. Most were never repaid. Mom shook her head. Nobody forced you to help your grandmother. I didn't say anyone did. Then why are you displaying it like a bill? Because you told everyone I refused to help. I placed Grandma's note beside the caregiving calendar. This isn't to prove I loved her more. It proves your story was false. Ruth picked up the calendar. Her mouth tightened when she saw the dates. I continued. These are the care account transfers and cash withdrawals I could verify from the records Grandma kept. These are the dates Mom asked me to cover expenses because the account supposedly couldn't be accessed. Jordan leaned forward. You don't know what every withdrawal was for. That's why I asked for an accounting. You're acting like I stole from Grandma. I'm showing the transfers. You can explain what they mean. Mom said. He used some money for transportation, food, and time he missed from work helping her. Then list it. We didn't keep receipts for every little thing. $18,600 is not every little thing. The room went silent. Jordan looked at Mom. That look told me my estimate was close enough to scare both of them. Dad sat down slowly. I placed Leah's screenshot in the center of the table. If Sarah signs the new page, no one has to know what Jordan did. I read. That message was sent by Mom. Mom turned to Leah. You had no right to share a private text. Leah's face flushed, but she held her ground. You sent it to me. It was taken out of context. What context makes it better? Leah asked. Mom ignored her and looked at me. You have been waiting for this. You have always resented your brother. No, I said. I protected him for too long because I wanted peace. Jordan gave a bitter laugh. Protected me? You act like you raised me. I paid your car payment. I replaced the money you owed Ruth. I covered expenses from Grandma's care because Mom told me the account was unavailable. I answered calls from creditors you were afraid to return. I lied by omission every time someone praised you for fixing something I had already fixed. I never asked you to do all that. Mom asked. You accepted. That doesn't make this my fault. Ruth looked at him. Whose fault is it, Jordan? He opened his mouth, then looked down. I placed the signature pages side by side. This is the page I actually signed when Grandma was alive. This is the page later submitted with my signature under language stating I reviewed and approved Jordan's withdrawals. Dad picked up the copies. Mom said quickly. Those pages were part of the same packet. No, they weren't. You don't remember every paper you signed. I remember where I was on the date typed on that page. I was at Grandma's specialist appointment. I have the calendar entry, confirmation email, and parking receipt. The signature page came from an older authorization. You're accusing your own mother of forgery. I'm stating that my signature appears under language I never reviewed or approved. Jordan pushed his chair back. This is insane. I looked at him. Did you submit it? No. Did Mom? I don't know. Did you know it existed? He looked at Mom again. Mom's voice sharpened. Stop interrogating him. Ruth set down the papers. Denise, she said. Mom turned toward her. Ruth rarely raised her voice. She didn't need to. Is any of this fake? Mom blinked. Excuse me. The transfers. The voicemail. The text. The signature page. Is any of it fake? Mom's eyes filled with tears. I can't believe my own sister is doing this to me. Ruth didn't move. I'm asking one simple question. Is any of this fake? Mom pressed a hand to her chest. You have no idea what I've carried for this family. That's not an answer. Dad stood and gathered 2 empty glasses. I looked at him. Sit down, Dad. He froze. It was the first time anyone had directly interrupted his escape route. This didn't need to happen in front of everyone, he said. Then Mom shouldn't have made everyone my jury. He stared at the glasses in his hands. Did you know? I asked. He didn't answer. Did you know I had paid those expenses? Yes, he said quietly. Mom turned toward him. Richard. He kept looking at the table. I knew some of it. Did you know Mom told people I refused to help Grandma? His shoulders sagged. Yes. Did you correct her? No. Why? He swallowed. I didn't want to fight your mother. I felt something inside me go completely still. Then you let me fight alone. That's not fair. It's exact. Mom stood up. You're blaming your father now? Is there anyone you won't attack? I asked him what he knew. He was trying to keep the peace. No. He was trying to avoid discomfort. Dad put the glasses down. I should have said something, he admitted. It wasn't enough, but it mattered that he said it in the room where his silence had done the damage. Leah turned to Jordan. So why was Sarah the one being accused if you were the one who spent it? Jordan rubbed both hands over his face. You don't understand. I was behind on things. I borrowed some. I planned to put it back. How much? Ruth asked. I don't know exactly. You transferred it, I said. You withdrew it. How do you not know? I was going through a bad time. Mom stepped in front of him as if he were 10. He made mistakes. He didn't steal. Leah said. Taking Grandma's care money without permission sounds like stealing. Do not use that word, Mom snapped. Jordan looked at me. You wanted everyone to think I'm a terrible person. No. I wanted you to explain where $18,600 went. It wasn't all for me. Then account for the rest. He shook his head. Some went to gas, food, helping Grandma, receipts. I didn't keep every receipt. What about the transfers labeled only with your name? I was going to pay it back. When? I said I was trying. The room had finally reached the place Mom had spent years preventing. Jordan was being asked a question, and nobody was accepting his feelings as an answer. He became angry. He said I had always been jealous because Mom trusted him more. He said I liked looking competent. He said I enjoyed being the family martyr. He said bringing documents to dinner proved I was cold. Some relatives shifted uncomfortably. One uncle said maybe everyone needed a break. I didn't argue with Jordan's description of my personality. I said, "Where is the money?" He had no answer. Mom cried without denying a single document. She said she had been trying to protect Grandma's memory. She said Jordan's life would be ruined over a temporary mistake. She said families handled things privately. Ruth replied, "You were handling Sarah publicly." That ended Mom's speech. The remaining funds and keepsakes were not handed to Jordan. The person assisting with the estate records paused the distribution and requested a formal accounting. The bank statements were gathered through the proper process. The total Jordan had used for expenses unrelated to Grandma came to just over $18,600. Some of it had gone toward his rent. Some went to a credit card. There were cash withdrawals he claimed were for groceries and transportation, but he couldn't document them. A few legitimate expenses were mixed in, which made the situation messy rather than simple, but not confusing enough to excuse it. Jordan was required to sign a repayment agreement before the remaining family property could be settled without further dispute. He lost any authority to manage the account, the keepsakes, or the sale of Grandma's remaining items. He didn't apologize to me. Instead, he sent a message saying, "Hope destroying the family was worth being right." I replied once. The family was already damaged. I stopped hiding the damage. Then I blocked him for a while. Mom told relatives I had forced legal action against my grieving brother. That version didn't travel as far as her earlier stories because people had seen the records. Not everyone apologized. A few relatives avoided the subject. One told me I had made my point and should let it go, as though the problem were my continued awareness of what happened. Leah apologized directly. "I should have asked you before judging you," she said. "I appreciate that," I told her. "I need actions to match it now." She understood. She stopped carrying messages for Mom. When Mom tried to use her as a go-between, Leah told her to contact me in writing. Ruth insisted that every future expense, distribution, and decision related to Grandma's estate be documented and shared with the relevant family members. She also apologized for staying quiet when Mom minimized what I had done for Grandma. "I thought avoiding conflict kept me neutral," she said. "It kept Mom comfortable," I replied. She nodded. "You're right." Dad came to see me several weeks later. He brought the lemon bar pan I had left at the first barbecue. Mom had kept it. He stood in my doorway, holding it with both hands. "I'm sorry," he said. "For which part?" He looked down. "For knowing you were helping and letting your mother say you weren't." for not asking questions about Jordan, for acting like silence meant I wasn't choosing a side. That was more honest than I expected. I didn't hug him. "I'm not cutting you off," I said. "But I'm not pretending this was a misunderstanding." "I know." "No, Dad. I need you to hear the rules." He nodded. "No calls asking me to calm Mom down. No messages about Jordan's feelings. No asking me to attend dinners where I'm expected to absorb another public accusation. If there is money or paperwork involved, it stays in writing." "That sounds harsh." "It sounds clear." He winced, but he didn't argue. My boundaries with Mom were stricter. I told her I would not lend or transfer money to her or Jordan. I would not sign anything I hadn't independently reviewed. I would not discuss estate matters by phone. I would leave any gathering where she used the family as an audience against me. She sent several long messages about forgiveness, loyalty, and how much pain I had caused her. I responded only when there was a practical issue that required an answer. For the first time in my life, I didn't explain myself until she agreed with me. That was harder than gathering the evidence. There were evenings when I'd pick up my phone because I knew Mom was angry, and some old part of me believed her anger was an emergency. I had spent years treating everyone else's discomfort like a bill with my name on it. I had also contributed to the problem. I had rescued Jordan, hidden the rescues, and accepted Mom's version of peace because telling the truth felt disloyal. I couldn't undo that. I could only stop repeating it. The next time Jordan missed a payment under his repayment agreement, nobody called me. The next time Mom complained that the family was falling apart, Ruth told her accountability wasn't the same as division. Dad stopped washing dishes during difficult conversations, though sometimes he still stared at the sink like it might save him. Leah and I rebuilt our relationship slowly, not through dramatic promises but through small things. She asked before assuming. I answered without giving her more access than she had earned. Ruth and I started having coffee without discussing Mom every time. My relationship with Mom remained low contact. She never gave me the apology I wanted. She never admitted she had deliberately tried to place my signature under language that protected Jordan. She called it a clerical mistake, then a misunderstanding, then something she couldn't remember because she had been grieving. Her silence at the table told me more than any confession would have. I used to think being a good daughter meant staying calm enough, useful enough, and generous enough that she would eventually tell the truth about me. Now I know I don't need her version of me to trust my own records, my own memory, or my own limits. I didn't destroy my family by telling the truth. I just stopped being the place where everyone hid their lies. For the first time, I let them be angry without running back to fix it, and that felt like freedom. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.